This is the moment I hit record on the annual ranking of all the movies I saw in the previous year. Last place at number 114, Borderlands movie at 2 minutes and 20 seconds. So, Borderlands movie is a movie that I did not enjoy. I don't think it's good at all, especially in a day and age where we're getting all these video game movie revivals. This to me just felt like a real step down in the middle of all this. We got The Last of Us, the Sonic movies, Fallout, the TV show, Arcane, just a bunch of great video game adaptations that we've gotten within the past year, or last 3 years really. This just feels like a total step down from all of that. The actors aren't fun on screen together. The jokes are bad. Jack Black does his best to be funny, but it just ends up coming off as cringe. It's a movie that got reworked all throughout the editing process. So inherently there could have been a better version of this, but I was just blatantly shocked about how bad that this film actually ended up to be. There's actual narration to fill in some of the gaps in the movie. It uses some cliche lines like, "You in what army? The one right behind me." That is a line used unironically in this movie. Just a bad movie. That's all I have to say about it. I'm going to kind of speed through these bottom 10 because, I don't think that I need to go through over these bottom 10 a lot because I did a video, top 10 worst of the year. Go check out that video if you want to see my more in-depth thoughts on these movies. 113, and really tied for last place, Megamind Doom Syndicate. There isn't much to say about this movie. I need to write down the timestamp. I need to remember to do that. There isn't much to say about this movie that hasn't already been said. This is just a cheap cash grab for Peacock. None of the original voice actors return. The animation looks so much worse. The story is kind of forgettable. Everything we learned in this movie contradicts what we learned in the first movie, and I just rewatched the first movie of last week. It's just a horrible movie. I don't imagine anybody enjoying these bottom two movies. So they're at the bottom. I don't think they're good at all. And Megamind 2 is the more poorly made film, but I think Borderlands I was a little bit more bugged by. That's why I placed Borderlands as the worst movie of the year. 112, Rebel Moon Part 2. And this is Zack Snyder's new movie. It was a sequel to Rebel Moon Part 1 from 2023. This one was just worse on every single level. It's just a bunch of CGI noise. None of the characters are compelling. Nothing really to enjoy here about this one. It has an overextensive use of slow-mo. So Zack Snyder, the way they released these was just so cynical. Where they release these PG-13 movies and they try to manufacture this release the Snyder Cut movement that works so well with the Justice League Snyder Cut. And this movie is just, that makes this movie feel so cynical. And the movie wasn't really good to begin with. So, Rebel Moon Part 2. 111, Madam Web. Now, this is probably the most common answer for one of the worst movies of the year. This is the SSU, Sony Spider-Man universe, lacking Spider-Man, where they take the Spider-Man villain, turn him into a hero. This one is the worst of the bunch. I think that the reason behind that is because none of the actors, clearly none of the actors want to be there. Horrible performances, bad ADR dubbing. There's actually no action sequences in this movie. This is just a horrible, horrible movie. I have no interest in rewatching this thing. It's just really bad. Not much to say about it that hasn't already been said. Number 110. Let me just write down the timestamp. I'm going to forget how to do these. Number 110, Pool Man. This is Chris Pine's directorial debut. It's just bad. It's kind of a noir. It's unengaging. It's not funny as this comedy. It's just really cheap with the jokes. And it was just unpleasant watching. Adding on to that, the most forgettable movie of the year. I don't remember a single thing about the plot of this movie except for kind of this romance, kind of this noir. I don't remember anything about the specifics of the plot of this movie. Kills this movie, ends up in the bottom 5. Simple. 6. 109, Saving Bikini Bottom, the Sandy Cheeks movie. This is just a horrible movie. Simply put, I watched SpongeBob growing up, and I think SpongeBob is very funny even to this day. I didn't think that this movie was very good at all, really. I thought it was just horrible. Cringe live action sequences. It contained these cringy live action sequences. It also, like, Sandy Cheeks, it brought in her family. Nobody was asking for that. And Sandy just isn't really an interesting character to spin off from. It's not like SpongeBob and Patrick. This time it's SpongeBob and Sandy. Just doesn't really work at all. And so that's all I have to say about that. 736. 108 Unfrosted. Unfrosted is the new Jerry Seinfeld comedy. To call it a comedy, very loosely there. It is barely comedy. It's more like a 90-minute extended bad SNL skit. It's filled with all these SNL actors. It's filled with these cringe jokes. The look of it looks like an SNL skit. It just looks horrible visually with the color scheme and everything that it does. Just really bad. I don't know if I could sit through this thing again. It's just not good. Number 107, Tarot. Now, Tarot is the horror movie that I thought was the worst of the year. Just like any other teenage horror movie, teenagers make really bad decisions in this movie. It's generic jump scare after generic jump scare, doing all these crazy wild things with these, like, the concept is there. There's an interesting thing you could do with a haunted deck of tarot cards where their horoscopes come true. Characters just make unbelievably stupid decisions. Another one with really bad performances, especially from Jacob Batalon, who played Ned in the Spider-Man Tom Holland films. Just not a good movie. I thought it was awful. And there have been a lot of... Later on this list, we'll get to a bunch of other really bad horror movies. 106, Megalopolis. This was the Francis Ford Coppola movie he'd been working on for literally over 40 years, and it's kind of funny how bad the dialogue is. It has bad dialogue. The performances are just bonkers. Shia LaBeouf in particular is just going out all on bonkers in this movie. The dialogue is really bad. It consists of, like, John Voight is laying in bed at some point. Something is sticking out of a blanket. He says, "What do you think about my boner?" And then he, like, uncovers it. And then he shoots one of the characters with a bow and arrow, which is what that was under his blanket. And he shoots 2 more arrows up another character's butt. Horrible script. Just a really bad movie. That's about as much as I have to say about it. I could rant on how so bad it's good it is all day. But, like I said, I do have a time limit here. I do have to go to bed, so I only have a limited amount of time to do this, and I normally would do this much longer, but don't really have that amount of time right now, so. 105, Kraven the Hunter. This is the last Sony Spider-Man, universe lacking Spider-Man, where they take the villain and turn them into a hero. This is Aaron Taylor Johnson. Simple revenge movie. Sure, what could go wrong? Well, another movie that... really bad dialogue. Also, the action sequences were... It's above Madame Web because it has, like, blood and gore. The action sequences would have been better, but, like, they're filled with some really bad CGI, especially once you get to the Rhino parts of the movie. It's just not good. Another one where there's not much to say about that hasn't already been said. Just not a good movie. Pretty much at all. And... we've made it through the bottom 10. You could check out my worst of the year list to see me talk about it more edited, more professional fashion. Now we move on to everything else in the middle. Just outside the top 10, 104, The Mousetrap. This was the Mickey Mouse horror movie that exploited Mickey Mouse kind of going into the public domain. We got this movie. The reason it's not in my bottom 10 is that at least it kind of knew it was a bad movie. Where it's funny how bad it is because it opens up with the Star Wars opening logos. A man turns into Mickey Mouse because he has Steamboat Willie playing. Then he pours beer on the wire for the film projector. Then he turns into Mickey Mouse by putting on the Mickey Mouse sauce. It is ridiculous. The way it ends, I was just kind of baffled by. The Mickey Mouse, for some reason, has the power to teleport, and in order to make him stop teleporting, you have to shine a blinking flashlight on him, and you'll go like, stop, 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 stop. It doesn't work. Now, this is a bad movie, but at least it kind of knew it was a bad movie. Yeah, at least it kind of was self-aware a little bit. Didn't make it in the bottom 10, but really close. It's 11th from the bottom. And so, number 102, The Crow remake. Now, this is a bad iteration of The Crow. This is the one with Bill Skarsgård in it, where it's a movie where he sort of falls in love with this girl, and instead of focusing on him getting revenge, 2/3 of it are this love story with. It was just really strange. Like, it takes so long for him to become the Crow. He doesn't become the Crow until like the last 25 minutes of the movie, and then it's just like the first 40 minutes are this romance, and then the 50 minutes into it, the kill actually happens, and it switches back and forth between these dream sequences. I don't buy into the romance. I think the action is done fine. There are some nice gore moments, but overall, this was just not a good version of The Crow. And it was just kind of boring for the most part all throughout the runtime because it didn't really have enough action to keep me entertained all that much. So, yeah, that was The Crow. Number 101, Afraid. This is the new Blumhouse horror movie, I believe. Blumhouse put on a lot of stinkers this year. We're going to get to one in just a bit, but Afraid is the one with the AI. Just really generic. Also really like over the top. I wasn't sure how the ending played into it very well. John Cho, he's doing the best with what he has, but it's another one of these movies where like nobody else wants to be there. Kind of like a Megan ripoff, but like not with nearly interesting kills. I'm not sure what its message was supposed to be. Like I said, the ending just baffled me, and don't have much to say about it. 100 Imaginary. This is the other horror movie I was talking about from Blumhouse. Just among the same lines of Afraid. Kind of like you could tell they don't want to be there making this movie. This one had a little bit more creativity to it, where it's a teddy bear, imaginary friend haunts this little girl, and then they go into imaginary world in the finale. A bunch of these movies here are sometimes just really, really forgettable. Like, I'm looking at my list here, I remember I saw them, but sometimes they're just really forgettable. Imaginary, I mean, there were some. I mean, I guess it's better than Afraid because it doesn't have just like an all-out bad ending like that one does, but kind of on the same lines as Afraid. It's quite bad, is my point to make here. 99. We made it past 100, and I didn't even notice that. Like 99. I saw the TV Glow. I am simply not the target audience for this movie. This is a new A24 movie has Justice Smith in it. It's about like these two kids who watched a TV show when they were growing up, and it kind of turns out to be real. Like I said, a lot of these movies are really forgettable, and they just kind of get lost in the mix of a really big list like this. I saw the TV Glow. It just was a movie absolutely not for me. I didn't understand it. I didn't get it. There were a bunch of people that were raving about it when it played at film festivals. I didn't get all the hype for it. I'm glad a bunch of people enjoyed this movie, but it's not awful. It's not terrible. I just didn't get as much out of this movie. So, and I didn't understand what the message was supposed to be also, where like the ending is kind of like he just goes crazy. Very strange way to end your movie, if you ask me. So that is I saw the TV Glow. 98, The Killer. This is John Woo's remake of his own movie. And his movie, The Killer from 1989, is a Hong Kong action classic. It has themes ongoing while also delivering some cool action. It's just this very cool movie. And this movie is a direct-to-streaming, totally generic Peacock movie. It doesn't have anything that stands out. None of the performances, none of the action I remember from this movie. It was just, it follows all the beats it's supposed to follow, but without anything that made John Woo's The Killer actually really good. So just a film that it didn't understand what made its source material good. So thus, naturally, it's not a very good movie in and of itself. Just really forgettable streaming movie. And so, don't have much to say about it. Number 97. Here's an interesting one. Joker 2. Joker Folie à Deux. This is a very polarizing film. It came out back in October. And with this placement on this list, I obviously didn't like it. I actually really debated putting it in the bottom 10 of the year because this, I think, is the movie that made me the angriest this year. But with all that said, I think that this movie... Did I skip something? Oh, wait. Yeah. Silly me. Look at me. I'm going crazy. I am going absolutely crazy. We'll talk about Joker 2 and we'll go back a little bit. So Joker 2 is... It's a very polarizing film. I didn't like it at all. This movie just felt like it hated the first movie and tried to undo everything that the first movie did. And so I just didn't like this movie at all. It was kind of so Joker, the first film, is about Arthur turning into the Joker. This one's about the Joker turning back into Arthur. The dumbest court case ever is in this movie where it's like, did he murder those people? There's an interesting idea there with his switching personalities that it tries to convey, but the way it does that is like, it doesn't do anything with it. Like, nothing at all. And there's a scene where Joker it's implied that he gets raped by prison guards. That's just not satisfying. And I know he's not a good man, but that's just not satisfying with this movie. The ending was so off the rails. Not to even mention that it was a musical. And the musical numbers do not stand out at all. I had no idea what they were supposed to be singing about. So, overall, just didn't like this movie. I know some people did, but I didn't. I'm going crazy. Like, I skipped a full movie back then. We'll talk about this one real quick. 103, Miller's Girl. Miller's Girl is the... Let me write it down here so I could keep that in note. Miller's Girl. Miller's Girl is the erotic thriller with Martin Freeman and Jenna Ortega. I found it disgusting. This is 12th from the bottom. This is 103 right between The Mousetrap and The Crow. That's what this is. So, Miller's Girl, just a disgusting movie. Where there's another erotic thriller on this list. It's Baby Girl. We'll get to that much later on in this list. But this one was just disgusting. At least Baby Girl tried to tackle some themes. This one had none of that. It's just a student trying to seduce their teacher. The wrong stuff to release in today's day and age where that's a legitimate problem and it just kind of plays out one of those scenarios. It's not satisfying. It's not erotic. And there was just it was just it put a bad taste in my mouth. Didn't make it in the bottom 10 because I think it's professionally made at least, but not a good movie at all. Okay, and so where was I? What did we just talk about before this? We talked about Joker Folie à Deux, and so we're at number 96, which is Role Play. Don't have much to say about this one. This was just a bad movie. Really forgettable, not really enjoyable, and just a throwaway movie that dropped on Amazon. Don't have much to say about it. Number 95, The Strangers Chapter 1, another horror movie, another bad horror movie. I had never seen any of the Strangers movies until a week before this movie. And I enjoy the second one more than the first one, I will admit. The first one is just kind of this, okay, whatever, horror movie that dropped. It's about a group of strangers that show up to this house, and the inhabitants of the house, a man and a woman, have to try to escape from these strangers. This one is the exact same thing as the original. If you have seen the original, you have seen The Strangers Chapter 1. It's just done much worse this time because it's so much more cynical because they marketed it as like this prequel. Like, discover how the strangers become the strangers. Does none of that. Just a beat for beat remake of the original. And we're getting 2 more of these. Not looking forward to it. Really bad movie. Don't watch it. Where was I? Strangers Chapter 1, number 94, Drive Away Dolls. Drive Away Dolls is the new Coen Brothers film, I think. Oh no, not the Coen brothers. One of the Coen brothers. I don't know Joel or Ethan. I don't remember who directed it. I have a feeling it was Ethan, but uh, it could have been either. Just like I didn't know what they were going for with this movie. It's kind of like this road trip screwball comedy where the jokes are entirely based on, hey, look, I brought a stripper over. Hey, look, there's dildos. Like, don't really remember much about it. Don't really remember the plot about it. Don't have much to say about it. It's just a really unpleasant experience to watch. Number 93, Lift. Lift is the, what was it, Kevin Hart Netflix movie that dropped. Really, along the same lines as some of these streaming movies. Really forgettable. Not particularly good. This one being something about a plane and a heist. This one probably should have been lower. I don't remember a single thing about it. I remember it had Kevin Hart in it. Oh, that's good. That's bad. Yep, don't remember a single thing about it. Next movie. Number 92. Despicable Me 4. Despicable Me 4. I know some people enjoyed this movie. I know some people are fans of the Despicable Me franchise. I grew up watching this franchise. This just wasn't it. I just didn't enjoy this one. This was just a bad Despicable Me movie. Where it... How do I describe this? The beginning sets up this whole thing with this villain, Maxine Lamal. The ending kind of bookends it. In the whole middle, it just feels like this anthology series. Which, if it was that, I might have enjoyed. As a theatrical movie, it doesn't work. Where Gru plans a heist with a child, Gru's playing tennis, Lucy's at the barber, Lucy's escaping from somebody. It's just all these disjointed, disconnected plot lines, and none of them actually work. They would work as little anecdotes for a Despicable Me TV show on Netflix. They do not work as a theatrical movie. There's no forward momentum in it, so while it was one of the highest grossing movies of the year, hot take, I didn't enjoy it. So there you go. Did I lose? No, I did not. Number 91, Spaceman. Spaceman is the new Adam Sandler dramatic film. And it was boring, for the most part. I saw this movie when it first came out on Netflix. It was boring. I appreciate that Adam Sandler's trying to do something more serious. This one was about an astronaut in space who communicates with an anthropomorphic spider, voiced by Paul Dano from The Batman. It was kind of a character study, but I wasn't all that invested in the character to begin with. Not much happens in it. It's professionally made. I appreciate Adam Sandler trying to do something different. And he has. He did Uncut Gems. He did Hustle on Netflix. This just wasn't it. I'm sorry, Adam Sandler, but your movie was really boring and very forgettable. And very slow at the same time. So, I didn't dig that one. Trying to write down the timestamps. That's hard because I want to make sure I get wherever these movies place on this list, so I could put chapter markers or something like that so you guys could skip ahead. Number 90, A Family Affair, another Netflix movie. This was rom-com starring Zac Efron and Nicole Kidman. My mind just blanked out there. I need a drink of water. Zac Efron and Nicole Kidman. Once again, just another generic streaming movie. This one's about a big star actor that starts dating his assistant's mom, Nicole Kidman. And just kind of plays by the generic rom-com bits. Characters are really unlikable. I did not like any of the characters in this movie. They were just kind of unpleasant. And that's the big takeaway from this movie. And when that's the big takeaway from your movie, it's not very good. Number 89, Subservience. This was the Megan Fox Megan knockoff, but rated R. If you don't know what this is the movie where essentially it's like Megan. They hire this AI adult maid. And this maid starts seducing the man in the house. And I went into thinking it was going to be like a fun bad movie. It's not nearly as fun bad as you might think. There are some It visually looked good. There were some nice sequences for a direct-to-video movie, but overall, I think it just took itself way too seriously. Like, it was trying to have these themes about family and unity that I don't think really worked, because it's this ridiculous, silly movie, and so just a kind of a throwaway direct-to-video movie. Number 89, not subservience, Night Swim. Night Swim. This is the first movie that I watched this year. Already we got a really bad movie. All these movies, pretty bad. Night Swim surprisingly didn't make it into the bottom 10. This is one that's about a haunted swimming pool. Dumb movie, but it's better than Imaginary and Afraid by a long shot. Simply because it is a little bit more interesting. There's something kind of fun and interesting about a haunted swimming pool with haunted waters. There's this Oscar the Grouch guy that shows up. At the very least, it comes to like a somewhat satisfying conclusion, more so than Imaginary and Frey-Eyed. Sometimes it was so bad it's good. It wasn't fully that, but sometimes it was, where like there's a sequence where like a girl is walking through the hallways of her house, and she keeps hearing her dad say Margot, 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 and then he jumps out of nowhere and he's just like, you're supposed to say Polo. Really bad, but also kind of fun. So it's much better than Afraid-Eyed and I'm blanking out here, Imaginary, because of this. Man, it's only been 29 minutes. My brain's already kind of going crazy now. Number next up here is The Kitchen 87. This is Daniel Kaluuya's, I think, directorial debut. This, much like Spaceman, just really forgettable. Daniel Kaluuya wasn't really the problem here. It's just like he could have wrote a script that was better. This is like a dystopian, sci-fi-esque movie. It's set in this world where this father kind of reconnects with his son after the mother dies, like kind of like that. Don't remember much about it. Just really slow, kind of boring, and yeah, don't have much to say about it. Next up is The Exorcism 86. The Exorcism is the new Russell Crowe horror movie. There were things about this one that I did like. A lot of horror movies are pretty bad. This one was pretty bad. Oh, we have even more horror movies after this in a row. But this is, at least Russell Crowe was trying with this movie. The opening was pretty good. It has a pretty interesting concept about a horror, supernatural entity taking place on people filming a remake of The Exorcist. There's something a little bit interesting about that. This movie doesn't really... Is it professionally made? Yes. Does Russell Crowe do a good job? Kind of, yes. He was actually trying with this movie, unlike Craven. Is it particularly good? No. Is it particularly memorable? No. And even, like I said, a bunch of these movies are just super duper forgettable. And it's maybe because they just get so lost in this list. Once we get to the higher movies that are more memorable, then it gets a lot more interesting. Right now we're at the less interesting part of the list. Next up, what do we have? Where was I lost my place. What was I talking? I was talking about The Exorcism. Next up, Hellboy: The Crooked Man. This is the new ultra low budget Hellboy movie that released. Visually, for its budget, I did think it looked okay. I don't like that Hellboy is this detective instead of this kind of just action character. He's more like a detective in this one. All he does is go around saying, oh crap, and then something else. Like, throughout this movie, he just goes around saying, oh crap, oh crap. It's kind of funny. Just one other one that's really forgettable. It's about like this demon, the Crooked Man, and then they go to these houses and cemeteries. For a low budget, I do appreciate that they were able to make a Hellboy movie like this, but as a Hellboy movie, if I'm gonna rewatch it, I'm just gonna rewatch Guillermo del Toro's movies. So don't have much to say about this one as well. Number 84, Maxine. This one has aged very poorly over time. I watched it for the first time and I thought it was okay. It was an okay conclusion to this X trilogy, over time it aged very poorly. The problem here is that there's absolutely no tension in this movie, and it's way too predictable. Those are the two main problems here, and the movie's kind of like, it's so upbeat, lively. It doesn't feel like a horror movie. I knew who the killer was immediately from the opening. Just like, this is probably my least favorite of the X trilogy. This one has aged very, very poorly, unfortunately. Next up is Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2. Now, I've heard some people say that this is a good movie. It is not a good movie, but it is much better than the garbage that was the first Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. There's some actual lore here with what they do behind it. It's better lore than the ones established in the first film. Kind of just retcons everything. Says that the first film is a movie within a movie, basically. But this movie, it had a bigger budget, so it has better special effects, better Winnie the Pooh costumes, it has better kills in it. I wish it didn't take itself so seriously, but at the very least, they are trying to make a better Winnie the Pooh movie. Is it good? No. There's some goofy elements in here that I don't think work, about like Christopher Nolan's brother's backstory, but at least they are trying to make it better. It's a lot more competent. Not to say that it's actually good, it's just a lot better than the garbage that was Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 1. So then we have Ricky Stenicki. Ricky Stenicki is the new Zac Efron, John Cena comedy, dropped on Amazon. There were funny moments in here. If you're in the mood for an R-rated comedy, it's passable enough. It's not amazing or anything like that, but it's all right, I would say. This it's kind of like, what was it about again? It's about these guys that made up this person, Ricky Stenicki, and then they used him as an excuse to go out and do things. And so they hired John Cena to play this character, and he finds this life through playing this character and turns it into a real reality. It was kind of actually, at least it tried to handle some themes. There were some fun bits in there. Is it a good movie? No. Some of the fun bits include, like, just, hey, it's a sexual joke. And there's not really a punchline there. But, overall, like, passable enough. Just one I never rewatch. 81, The Greatest Hits. This is a new Hulu original romantic drama about somebody who can listen to music and travel back in time after her boyfriend died. And then she meets this new guy and is kind of conflicted. Do I go back and save him, or do I stay with him? And it's kind of this conflicting story. It tried to handle some themes, like I said, with Ricky Stenicki. It also tries to do that. As a romance, I don't know that it's all that romantic, all that good, or anything like that. Or it was just kind of bland. With the time travel aspects, I think it could have done better things with it. The time travel was really underutilized in this movie. So another one that's just, it's passable enough, it's streaming, but not one that I would ever go back to. 80 here, this is the Robert Zemeckis movie. The gimmick to this movie is that the camera stays in one spot, never moves the entire movie, and it's showing through all of the events of time in which this area of land has been inhabited, with what's been happening here. It's this drama. It stars the cast of Forrest Gump, basically. Robin Wright is in it. Tom Hanks is in it as the two leads. Very non-linear, which made it confusing. And this is a shame, because Robert Zemeckis directed Back to the Future. He directed Forrest Gump, some of my favorite movies right there. But the gimmick to this movie was just totally lost with... It's just kind of bland, where it's jumping around, and it picked the least interesting dramas. Like, ever wonder how The Lazy Boy was created? They focus on this family with, like, Paul Bettany and his son, which is Tom Hanks. It just goes on for a while. I didn't know what I was supposed to get out of it. So an interesting gimmick. I appreciate he was doing something different. There was a gimmick there that was interesting. But overall, did it pay off? No, it did not. I didn't think it was particularly good. It was just another one that was kind of boring. 79, Garfield. Now, this is the new Chris Pratt animated Garfield movie. I'm not familiar with Garfield. I just know that there's these shorts, basically these little comic panels. And this movie instead is a heist movie with Garfield's dad. Weird, weird, weird. So it does play by the beats of this stuff, like Strange World from Disney. It plays by those beats exactly. Effective enough, I guess, but just not really a good movie. If I want to watch a Garfield movie, it's not going to be this. I'm not really a big fan of Garfield, and I thought that this was... I feel like this movie just got... They started off with the generic template that was used in Strange World, and then wrapped a Garfield skin around it, essentially. Number 78, Trap. This was the new M. Night Shyamalan movie, and I know some people really enjoyed this movie. I didn't. I'm one of the few, I would say, that didn't like this movie, and that's because the basic concept here was really interesting. Serial killer, daughter, concert, trying to escape from the concert's a police trap, he's trying to escape. Really interesting, the trailers were great. Movie itself. It consisted mostly of M. Night Shyamalan's daughter singing. I didn't go to the movie for that. All the attempts in which he tries to escape didn't really work for me. It doesn't show that he's like this intelligent killer. It's like, I pushed someone down the stairs, but oh no, that didn't work. Let me go back to my sleep. I caused an explosion in the kitchen and I went to the roof, but oh no, that did nothing. So let me just go back to my seat. And the second half of it, I thought it just went off the rails, where it went outside of the concert with the logic and everything, and how did he change so fast? How did he teleport there? Like, what's going on? He gets defeated in such a stupid way for me about this pie. And so, overall, I'm glad a lot of you enjoyed it. I wish I could. I didn't. Next up, Baby Girl. Baby Girl is the other erotic thriller I was talking about. Nicole Kidman. For whatever reason, I ended up seeing this one instead of Nosferatu. I really wanted to see Nosferatu, but people around me wanted to see Baby Girl, so that's why I ended up watching Baby Girl. And so, Baby Girl is, I'm just not really into erotic thrillers, like I said. This one's not really erotic. It's just kind of unintentionally funny at some parts, where it's about this woman who is sexually unsatisfied with her husband, who's played by Antonio Banderas. So she goes off with this other guy that's much younger than her. And it was trying to tackle themes with like human desires and what are we drawn towards. And so it did something very interesting. Sorry, my mom just walked in there. I'm 40 minutes into the shoot. So my mom just walked in there and I got jump scared. So the movie itself, at least it tried to tackle some interesting themes. But it's just not... It's not for me. It's not very good. It's professionally made. Just not really for me. Then we have Damsel. Damsel is the Millie Bobby Brown fantasy movie that came out on Netflix. It was okay. I didn't think it was as bad as other people made it out to be. It was, but it feels like not really much happened in it. It's like she gets tricked into this marriage, goes down a cave, and escapes very slowly because this is a feature-length film, and then gets her revenge. Not much happens in it. And I'm going to rewatch a fantasy movie. Fantasy is just not my genre. And I'm going to rewatch a fantasy movie. It's not going to be this one. So, don't have much to say about it. It's just kind of whatever. Let me just skip down to here so that I could be on track. Number 75, Red One. Red One is the Rock, Chris Evans Christmas movie where they have to rescue Santa Claus after he gets kidnapped by a witch. It should be a lot more fun than it actually is, but it's a generic PG-13 blockbuster with a big gigantic budget. That was fine. It was mid. The Rock and Chris Evans have great screen presence, but it took itself way too seriously for a movie about Santa Claus getting kidnapped. It took itself way too seriously, and it it tried to have these themes in it that inherently it felt like a streaming movie. It was intended to release on Amazon, and apparently Dwayne Johnson saw Oppenheimer, and so then he's just like, hey, we gotta release Red 1 in the theater. And which is a load of baloney right there, so. If you're in the mood for a Christmas movie, this is probably not the one I'm gonna go back to. Passable enough, but just kind of generic, forgettable. Among those same lines, My Spy, The Eternal City. This is the sequel to My Spy, movie from 2020, where it's about these kids. It's about a kid who becomes a spy. This one's about these kids going on a field trip. Dave Bautista, I mean, he's fun enough in the lead. It was watchable, much like Damsel, Red 1, just kind of this generic streaming movie. It's kind of reminiscent of Far From Home, and, I like spy movies. It was watchable, passable enough. Memorable? No, but passable. 70, along the same line, 73 Atlas. A lot of this big chunk in the middle here, filled with streaming movies. This one wasn't as bad as people were saying it was. People said it was awful. I didn't think that was the case with this movie. This is the Jennifer Lopez, what do you call this? Jennifer Lopez Titanfall-esque movie. It's a Titanfall-esque movie where she enters a mech suit and enters a robot suit and tries to survive. It can have some big spectacle in the third act. In the middle of it, it's just a little bit strange where she's like sniffing flowers with the robot in the middle of it. It wasn't horrible like people were saying it was. It was entirely watchable to me because I like sci-fi. I'm just not into like AI movies. There's like an AI patting itself on its back. Like these middle chunk is just like feels like it was written by AI. It really does. Generic streaming movies. It feels like it was squished through that template. 72 Orion and the Dark. This is the kind of DreamWorks. It was the DreamWorks movie that went to streaming. It was fine. Once again, a lot of these streaming movies, they're fine. They're just not all that memorable. So this one was about a boy or a parent who makes up a story about a guy befriending the dark and him learning to overcome his fear of the dark. It was kind of creative. It tried to do kind of this Inside Out sort of thing with this dark crew that it introduces. Just not all that memorable. I didn't really think it worked all that well with its themes or everything. Don't have that much to say about it. Just forgettable. 71 Moana 2. This one really disappointed me. This is the sequel. The sequel to Moana. It should be a lot better than it actually is. This is a Disney Plus show that was last minute converted into a movie, and you definitely feel that on display here. Maui is 100% a side character in this movie. The other side characters that they replace him with aren't really memorable. None of the songs are really memorable. And, the movie just has that, meh factor. Okay, a new Moana movie came out. And it should be much better, because I love Moana. I love the first Moana. I think it's very good. It was able to tackle some themes. Then the finale in this movie involves them battling a cloud that's really easy to defeat. Like, she just swims under and touches this island. It's defeated. Fate kills off Maui. Fate kills off Moana. You know they're not going to kill both of those characters off, so I just thought the ending didn't work. So I enjoy Moana, so it was okay, but it wasn't particularly good. 70 Immaculate. This is the nun horror movie that came out this year. Very reminiscent of the first Omen, which we'll get to much later on in this list. But Immaculate is kind of just like the first Omen if it didn't tie into the Omen lore. Sydney Sweeney is in it. It's fine. Once again, most of these movies are fine. It's kind of generic horror movie where the scares are kind of just throwaway scares. It had this standout ending that I remember. There was all the ultra violence in the third act. That was actually that was pretty well done. That was pretty cool what they did there with the ending, with the twists and everything. But I saw this movie after The First Omen, so it wasn't as fresh, and it wasn't nearly as interesting because it didn't tie into any Omen lore, so it was just kind of like a throwaway horror movie. What do we got here? The Watchers. This is a Shana Shyamalan, M. Night Shyamalan's daughter's film that came out. This one being about them in a forest, people in a forest, and they're being watched by these fairies. And very much falls under this M. Night Shyamalan-esque movie where it builds intrigue. Unfortunately, when the twists happen and it reveals answers, I think it just doesn't really work all that well anymore once it reveals its answers. And when it gets to the ending, it's kind of dumb. I'm just being honest there. When it goes to the house at the end and how this antagonist is defeated, it just gets kind of silly and goofy, especially in like the final shot. It's kind of silly. So, and it's okay. I thought it was better than Trapped because it was more interesting. Overall, just one that could have been much better than it actually is 68 Mean Girls. Since I haven't seen the original, I thought it was okay. Another one that's fine. A lot of these movies are fine. I'm just describing them as because they're not particularly good. They're not particularly dumpster fires. They're just fine. And so this is kind of, I hear this is just a beat for beat remake of the original with the same jokes and everything, just with songs mashed into it. The musical numbers themselves are kind of fun. I'll be honest. Some of them are kind of fun. Some of them are super duper cringe. I'm not like a big Mean Girls fan. I have no familiarity with it. I didn't mind this remake as much as most people did. But I can see how if you're a fan of the original, you don't enjoy this movie. So how it will change, it might change on this list depending on if I see the original. I think it's fresher because it's not a musical, but it feels like also like the musical numbers are just mashed into here. And so there you have it. That's Mean Girls. Another musical here, Mufasa. This is the Lion King prequel. I thought it was better than the 2019 Lion King because it had better animation. The animals actually emoted quite a bit in this movie. They can smile, they can frown. They're given a little bit more expression in this one. But the movie just, like, it was trying to do too many things at once. It was trying to be Mufasa origin story, Scar backstory into a villain, and it also was trying to, like, cut back to these stories for Pumbaa and Timon to do, like, fart jokes. And then it was also trying to have this adventure, trying to escape from these white lights. Just trying to do too much. So much so that in the middle of it, I forgot it was a musical. In the middle of it, I forgot who the villains were. And every time they cut back to, like, Timon and Pumbaa, I was just like, oh yeah, that's a thing. Frustrating. If it focused on one or two of these things, I think it would have done them really well. And it's just the way they did Scar's backstory is just not believable also. Where his entire personality changes within a single second of this movie. Doesn't feel believable for where he turns out in the original Lion King. So, overall, a movie that could have been much better than it actually is. In a Violent Nature 66, this is essentially what this is a slasher told from the perspective of the killer. And there, much like the movie here, there is an interesting gimmick to that. Where the killer goes around killing people and you're just following him. And it's out in the woods. It's set in an interesting setting. It should be a lot better than it actually is. The inherent problem with this, though, is that the killer is mostly just walking around through the woods. We're just like stomping around. That is a majority of this movie. It kind of even somewhat feels like a video game with the way it's shot. It's just following his back around. Kind of like that. And so there's an interesting gimmick there. It does have some of the kills here are pretty good, and it does have some nice gore effects and all that, but it's not particularly a movie like, if you want a slasher, you're not going to spend your time watching a guy walking around in the woods almost the entire time. So, In a Violent Nature 65, Never Let Go. This is the Halle Berry movie from the director of The Hills Have Eyes. It was fine. Saw this one on my birthday. I thought it got more interesting as it went along, where I didn't get this when I first watched it, and then we discussed it in the car ride home where maybe she's crazy, maybe she's telling them things, or maybe there's an actual evil. So, which could lead to the ending that is more interesting than I found at face value, where it has different interpretations about what was really going on in this movie. Whenever a movie has an ending like that, it becomes interesting. However, it took kind of a while to get there. The first half is kind of really generic. It picked up a little in the second half, so I almost went positive on this one, but there were just too many questions that were left a little bit unanswered for me to actually enjoy it. Number 64, Argylle. This is the Sam Rockwell, Bryce Dallas Howard spy movie from Matthew Vaughn. This one disappointed me a little bit. Like, I enjoy Matthew Vaughn and what he does. I enjoy the Kingsman movies. I enjoy the spy genre. This, to me, I had fun with this one, but it had too many twists in it. It had like 20 twists at the end where it was trying to and only like a third of them worked for me. It's fun, it's fast paced, it's entirely watchable. Also, they kind of marketed it really weird where they showed John Cena, Henry Cavill. They're barely in this movie. Argylle, the central character, is barely in this movie. It's the book that came with this movie is nothing like the movie at all. So it's just very strange the way they did this one. So fun enough, not particularly all that good. Honestly, everything from Argylle up, I would say I would go positive on. Argylle and the next few here are very much mixed positive, but Argylle I would say is an enjoyable movie. Number 63, Smile 2. This is... I know I wasn't crazy about this one like most people were. I like the first one more than this one, actually. This one, I thought the opening sequence was really good. The lead actress, Naomi Scott, does a great job in the performance with this movie. But, where it goes... I thought it was thrilling all throughout it, just like the first one. Where it goes in, like, the third act, though, the ending was just kind of like, WTF? What are you doing here? And I thought that, like, the previously established rules are just kind of, like, broken in this one. And it was kind of confusing as well by the time you got to the end. The sense of reality is broken here, and I think that might have been intentional because it's about a character losing their sanity. So, of course, you want that. But to me, the line was just totally lost here. And maybe that was intentional. Maybe I need to give this one another watch to enjoy it more. 62, Roadhouse. This was the Jake Gyllenhaal remake of Roadhouse. I watched the original Roadhouse a week before this movie came out, and I didn't really enjoy it. And then I saw this movie, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. Yeah, I thought it was a fun little film. Like, it's kind of like an anthology series where it was a movie done the right way, where it's these fun little anecdotes. There's not supposed to be like a central through line here. It's just a bunch of fun scenarios with the Roadhouse. Jake Gyllenhaal's a lot of fun. A bunch of these other characters, Conor McGregor, really fun in this movie. Not best of the year, not best action movie or anything like that, but really fun movie. 61, If, another one that disappointed me a little bit. This one was John Krasinski's new movie, and I thought it was okay, but it just felt so confusing at points. It can have some heartfelt moments here with the mom backstory and what they do with that later on, and what they do at the end kind of works for me. But the movie itself is just... It was so confusing the way they gave out information to the audience that I didn't really latch on to much of it. It was fine. It was enjoyable enough family entertainment. So I thought this was okay, but another one where I just thought it could have been so much better if they just structured it differently or somewhat like that. 60, Thelma. I just didn't get the hype for this movie. I thought it was good. It's kind of like, we got another movie kind of similar to this earlier this year. It was called The Beekeeper, which we'll get to much higher up on this list. But it's kind of like The Beekeeper if it was not an action movie and if it starred a grandma. And so it's kind of this screwball comedy of sorts. And where it goes with that, it can have some funny moments. But then I watched it, and I was just like, kind of like, whatever. Like, I don't get like the hype. Like, what was so good about Thelma? It's just kind of this. It has some funny moments, like I said. It can be a little bit satisfying once you get to the end. But overall, it's just like, I watched it less than 3 weeks ago, and I can't remember like the specific plot points in it. So, just kind of like, whatever. What was the hype for this movie that I didn't understand? A Quiet Place Day 1. This is the Quiet Place prequel. This one also disappointed me a little bit. I thought it could have, like, the characters kind of worked here with Lupita Nyong'o's character and how she finds companionship through... Name's not popping up. I thought the character work actually kind of worked here, but the movie just, like, it was so light on creatures compared to that. This is one that I rewatched last week. It was so light on the creatures compared to the first two movies. I thought that it was a good movie. But it just wasn't nearly as thrilling as the first two. I didn't feel that edge of my seat danger in the first two. The use of sound is just great here. We are an hour into filming. The use of sound is just fantastic. But overall, I didn't particularly think that this was very this was like a very good film compared to the first two, while still being good. It's good. It's just not great. Amelia Perez, 58. This is... Oh, wait. Amelia Perez! This is the musical not courtroom, but law, sort of, crime thriller that I dropped this year. There's a weird way to describe this movie. So it stars Zoe Saldana, Selena Gomez is in there, and it's about this lawyer that helps this cartel boss turn into a woman so that he can start a new life. And it's kind of interesting. It was kind of there were themes in there that I thought were interesting in this movie, but overall, like all the ideas felt so half baked that I didn't think that it was particularly well developed. And so you have this drama where he's trying to reconnect with his family, and it only kind of like half explores that. You have this like his past as cartel boss, it kind of only half explores that. And the musical numbers, I don't, some of them stand out, others really don't, but it was interesting. It did leave a mark. I did think it was interesting. So I did think it was alright. Not one that I know that I'll rewatch, but it's alright. 57, Arcadian. This is A Quiet Place-esque thriller with actually really cool creature designs. That's what stood out about this movie. So the creature designs, when there's like the creature do this like thing, very cool. This movie was made for under $1 million. You know that? It had Nicolas Cage in it. It's not like one of his stand-up performances or anything, but I enjoy anything Nicolas Cage is in. This one kind of it's a more independent production, and visually I was impressed with what they were able to do with under $1 million. It was quite thrilling. Once again, not one that I know that I'll rewatch, but this is a solid creature feature. 56, Kung Fu Panda 4. Now, this is I was harsh on this one when it first came out. Now I don't think it's all that bad anymore. This is, I mean, I enjoyed this movie for what it was now. Like, if you just want another Poe adventure, it delivers that. The Furious 5 may not be in it. It might not have the heart of the first 3 Kung Fu Panda movies, but it was still good. It was a good movie experience. So, I enjoyed this movie. I thought it was good. Was it amazing like the first 3 were? No, it was not. It had a great cover song at the end. It doesn't have the heart of the first 3, but it was a fun Kung Fu Panda adventure. Sometimes that's all you need. I was just going to say 100. What am I thinking? Like, I am just going crazy today. Number 100, not 100, number 55, The Instigators. This is Matt Damon and Casey Affleck's new movie, directed by Doug Liman of Roadhouse, also earlier this year. I had fun with it. I thought it was this fun, fast-paced movie. I like Matt Damon in anything that he's in. This one also had, like, Paul Walter Hauser had some fun moments, and it's about these two guys that get wrapped up in this, like, bank robbery, and they have to, like, try to escape, clear their names, all that stuff. I thought it was fun. It's on Apple TV Plus. It's not one that I think is amazing or anything like that, but I had fun watching this movie because I like these types of fast-paced thrillers. Thus, I enjoyed this movie. 54, Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice. This is, to be clear, I have no nostalgia for the original Beetlejuice. I thought it wasn't very good. I went to see Beetlejuice, and I barely got any Beetlejuice. He appears for like 5 minutes in the film. It just been a movie about Alec Baldwin and his wife, haunted house, being ghosts, and then them trying to scare these innocent people away. I might have had more fun with it, but as a Beetlejuice movie, I was just so let down. Thus, I went into this movie with lower expectations, went out and see it, and I was pleasantly surprised. It had an actual interesting, engaging plot that I would say is better than the first films. It had these two ongoing plots where I thought one of them was overcooked, was like put on the front and center. The other one was just so retracted, so back. And so, it didn't fully work. It still has its flaws, but I like this movie. I thought it was better than the original, and if I'm going to rewatch Beetlejuice, I'm going to rewatch this movie. And Beetlejuice had a bigger role in this movie. Exactly what I went to the first film for, and this movie ended up delivering it. 53, Piece by Piece. This is one that I debated even including on this list. This is because I don't typically watch documentaries. I don't typically put documentaries on these lists. This is the Pharrell Williams documentary about Pharrell Williams told in the form of Lego. Sounds really weird, actually works quite a bit. Where Pharrell Williams is just a very lucky and blessed person to have all of this come to him. And it was actually interesting. The way it visualizes his thoughts, his views on music, because it's told in Lego form, it's able to bring more life to it than you would initially think it does. Is it one that I'll be rewatching? No, not particularly, because this is a movie that what is this? It's a documentary, simply put, and because it's a Lego, I wish it was a lot more story based instead of documentary, but overall still a good movie. 52, ISS. This is the International Space Station thriller. It has Ariana DeBose in the lead. It's about Russian cosmonauts and American astronauts on the ISS together. They are told to take the other one out because a nuclear war is going on the Earth, so they're told to take control of the ISS, and that leads to some drama and conflict here. I enjoyed it. I thought it was solid. I thought it was good. It's a solid B movie. Now, is it one of the best movies of the year or anything like that? No, but I know a lot of people didn't like this movie. I just didn't get any of that. I thought it was nicely paced. It was thrilling, and I thought it was interesting. This interesting, conflicting thriller. Could it have been better? Absolutely. I thought if it had more characters, then maybe it could have added more to the experience. But overall, I enjoyed it. I thought it was solid. Number 51, Twisters. This one is one that I didn't really understand all the hype for. This is one that I enjoyed more than the first film, much like Beetlejuice. I did watch the first Twisters literally the day that I went out to see this movie. Right before it, I saw the original Twisters. The original Twister. What am I saying now? And so, this movie, I think it's much better than that one. It delivers better spectacle. The opening sequence, once again, is fantastic. I love the opening sequence of this movie, probably the best opening sequence of the year. But then, or one of them, because you still got, Deadpool 3 and a bunch of other stuff with great opening sequences. But I liked Twisters. I thought it was good, where it actually does have a little bit of character work. Not that the character actually stood out to me or anything like that, but it does have some solid character work. Glenn Powell has been making sort of a revival in movies. We'll get to one of his movies much later on in this list. But he has been doing some really good stuff lately. So yeah, I enjoyed this movie. Not as much as you guys do, but I thought Twisters was fun. It was fun. It was enjoyable. Then we have Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. Another one that I thought was going to be bad. Netflix bought this franchise, and they did the fourth film in the Beverly Hills Cop franchise, and it was quite good. It was a pretty decent Beverly Hills Cop movie. Eddie Murphy, he has still got it. And it makes all the original cast return. It has some callbacks to the original. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, great addition to this movie. And so one where I just went in with no expectations or thinking it was going to be like garbage, actually ended pretty good. And I didn't expect that. So you want a fun Beverly Hills Cop movie, not nearly as good as the original, of course, but still just really fun. 49, The Idea of You. This is a new Amazon romance drama starring Anne Hathaway and Nicholas Galitzine. I thought it was all right. It was fine, and it actually did have some character work and some themes. So that's why it's above all these other streaming movies, where it's tackling the themes of kind of like what Baby Girl did a little bit, but a lot better, as it's not really an affair movie about like our human desires. What do we draw toward? What's best for other people? About people who are still learning more about themselves as they age. There's still some themes going on here, so I thought it worked a lot better than a bunch of the other streaming movies. Not one that I rewatch, but still good. Among those same lines, Babes. This is a new pregnancy movie. I have never been pregnant, nor have I ever gotten somebody pregnant, so I don't relate to this movie. But I also thought this one had some interesting themes in it, where it's about a woman who gets pregnant and then tries to work through it with her friends and then has these falling outs. Just sort of this relatable experience. And it works quite nicely. Where it's a lot more relatable than you might see at face value. Once again, not one that I rewatch. Number 47, Monkey Man. This is the new Dev Patel action movie that came out near the beginning of the year. It stars, is written, and is directed by him. And essentially, the way people describe it is Indian John Wick, and that's why it's awesome. And I wouldn't say it's that at all. It's not even close to being Indian John Wick. It's much slower than John Wick. It's much more like a slow burn where he's like ranking up with his jobs in order to get into higher positions to get revenge on these guys. Solid, good. I don't know that I'd ever rewatch it because it is kind of a slow burn. The action is done very well, and so I enjoyed this movie. Just didn't absolutely love it like some other people did. Number 46, Venom Last Dance. This is one... Venom Last Dance is one where people absolutely just hate it, and I didn't get that at all. I enjoyed this movie. Thought it was probably the best of the Venom films. Like, it had Tom Hardy as Eddie and Venom, then they have their fun dynamic just as usual, but also has much more of sort of a... It has kind of a heart to it by the time you get to the end. And the final battle, I think, is the strongest. It's probably the most fun of the three because you have the two of them being together the whole time. It's a lot more globe-trotting as an adventure. I dug it, and I stand by that. Like, you could fight me if you want, but I stand by the fact I liked Venom Last Dance. Number 45, another one that I think is overhated, Salem's Lot. This is HBO Max original. Essentially what it is a vampire movie. It's a where it's from the writer of It. I think directed this movie, and it's a smaller budget vampire flick where there's this town that this guy goes to. It turns out it's infested with vampires, so he has to do his best in order to kind of survive and make it out of there. And I had fun with it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fine. It was good. It had gore effects. It wasn't afraid to be a little bit edgy with kids dying and things like that. It passed the time quickly. And I watched it on my phone on the way to a church confirmation retreat. So I probably didn't even watch it on the best context. But I did enjoy this movie when I watched it. So I had fun with it. 44 Elevation. This is another one of these, much like Arcadian earlier on this list. This is like A Quiet Place-esque film with a gimmick to the creatures, but I think this one is a little bit more enjoyable. This one, the creatures cannot go above 8,000 feet, so people are living above in the mountains. And as Anthony Mackie in it, it has Vanessa from the Deadpool movies. I had fun with it. Another one, much like Salem's Lot, where is it one that I'll rewatch if I'll go back to this genre? Probably not, but I thought it was fun. It was good enough. That's all it needed to be. That's what it was. 43, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. This one was kind of disappointing. I thoroughly enjoyed Afterlife. I listed down Afterlife as my favorite movie of 2021, and I stand by that. I love Afterlife. Still love it. I think of the Ghostbusters movies, it has the most kind of emotional resonance to it. And then this one came out. I was super excited for it. I really dug it when it came out, but over time, it's gotten a lot more forgettable to me. Where I'm just like, oh, there was a Ghostbusters movie that came out? It's kind of like that. Where it does expand on the lore, but it just tried to do too many things. It clearly was reworked in the editing room. And so I thought this was a good movie. I enjoyed this movie. Could it have been much better? Yes, it could have, and that's what's frustrating. 42, Y2K. This is the Kyle Mooney directed film after he came off of Saturday Night Live. He chose to direct this movie. I don't know if he wrote it. I don't want to research that right now, but he probably did. This is the what if scenario if Y2K was a real event. I did not live through Y2K. I was born in 2009. So inherently this movie felt kind of dated because the humor was of the first half of the film, or pretty much all throughout the entire film, was kind of entirely based around the fact hey, remember that from 1999? The robot effects are quite cheesy, but that's also kind of the fun of it. It's short, it passes the time quickly. It's fun, it's funny, and even something as simple as a condom joke could pay off later on. It does very much capture that young teenage atmosphere of going out to parties and trying to get the girl. It's like it very much captures that teenage angst that people like me go through. I'm not saying I go to parties and drink or anything like that. I don't do that, but it very much feels like a movie that was made for teenagers like myself. I had fun with it. 41, Gladiator 2. This one, it seemed to be very polarizing. So where some people were thinking it was great, others were less fans of it, and I thought it was solid. I'm not I don't hate it. I don't love it. I thought it was good enough, and I liked it. Now, does it live up to the original, this classic film from Ridley Scott that has been praised and celebrated for 25 years now? Absolutely not. It's not on that level at all. And I went into this movie with lower expectations, why would you bring back Gladiator after 24 years? But Ridley Scott won me over well enough, as it provides the gladiator action that you expect from a gladiator film. It contains all these big action sequences. I would even argue maybe they stand out a little bit more in this movie. There's one in the water with sharks. It's still epic in scale. It kind of follows the beats of the original and then tries to do its own thing. I thought it worked well enough. And not one that I absolutely love. I think I went in with the wrong expectations because I saw this movie a couple weeks after it came out. I was later to the party to it. But I thought it was good. It was enjoyable. And yeah, I'd recommend it. Where was I? Gladiator 2. Number 40, The Beekeeper. This is the Jason Statham action movie that came out at the beginning of the year. I like Jason Statham. I like action movies. And I'm a simple guy. That's the Beekeeper right there for you. Very simple, straightforward revenge plot about him, a bunch of people scamming this lady, and then he's trying to get revenge. Very simple. Even they dropped a trailer for this movie, The Working Man, or A Working Man, directed by the same guy, David Ayer. Very much a similar premise. It just kind of looks like Taken. I'm not super duper excited for that one, but I'm down for that. Even if it was written by Stallone and this movie did what I wanted it to do. 39, Rebel Ridge. This is a Netflix action movie that was actually good. Well, not really an action movie. There's not a lot of action in it, but it's a thriller. And the basic premise of this one is kind of like First Blood. That's a guy that's just minding his own business and is kind of ridiculed by these cops. Kind of like First Blood. Now, to be straightforward and honest, this is going to sound crazy to you guys. I've never seen First Blood. Or any of the Rambo movies that follow. Like, that's going to sound crazy. Like, I like movies. I know about the Rambo movies. My brother and my dad have seen First Blood. I have never seen First Blood. They've seen the Rambo movies. I haven't. So, one day, I might need to catch up and watch all those movies for the very first time. Anyways, Rebel Ridge, my dad and my brother described it as sort of a rehash of Rebel Ridge, of Rambo, but a good version of that. Will this one be one that I rewatch? No, not particularly. I do like the lead actor in it. Like, soon after, it's pretty cool that soon after he did this movie, he got cast to do the Green Lantern in James Gunn's DCU, and so that's kind of fun that he got that, and I'm looking forward to see what this guy does next. So I enjoyed this movie. I thought it was good. Wasn't particularly awesome to me. Not one that I'll rewatch, but it was good. Moving in a very different direction, Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire 38. This is the most ridiculous movie of the year. I get how it could be totally ridiculous to some people. For someone like me, where it's very easy to enjoy monsters, punch and fight other monsters, I had fun with this one. Like, seriously, like, some people were not going to enjoy this movie. When we went to see this one in the theater, my dad left a little bit angry that we forced him to watch this one in the theater because he just couldn't stand how ridiculous it was with, like, the mech suit. Not the mech suit, but the robot arm Godzilla in the middle of the earth. If you could just accept the goofiness of this franchise, I enjoy it. I don't think it's as good as or as enjoyable as Godzilla vs. Kong from 2021, but I do think it's still a fun time at the movies. And this is something big mainstream. Let's move on to something smaller. New Life 37. This is a smaller independent film about not particularly one that's like super duper memorable anything. It's essentially about this girl on the run, and you don't know what she did. You don't know why she's on the run, and it kind of plays that out. And you soon learn the reasoning behind all of this, and it kind of plays that out. It's like sort of a mystery thriller on why is she on the run, why are these things happening around her. It's sort of a zombie apocalypse. It's sort of a thrill. It's a thriller. It's a mystery, and it was just an effective one. I like every year when I watch these movies that are smaller, they're independent, they're lower budgeted, and I get to talk about them here on this list and recommend them to you guys that probably haven't seen them. So New Life 100% is one of those movies. It's lower budget. I don't know where you can find it on streaming anymore. I think I watched it on Amazon or something like that, but I thought that I had fun with this one. Another independent film, 36 Cuckoo. This is the horror movie that I watched in theaters instead of Borderlands movie. Fun fact, I was actually very close to watching Borderlands movie in the theater, and then I got saved at the last second, looked at the ratings, I saw Cuckoo instead. I'm glad I made that decision because Cuckoo is a very good movie. Essentially what this is it's this girl moves into this resort, and weird things are happening around her with, you know, these weird sequences with time, this weird looking lady, and she's trying to figure out what exactly is going on here. The people working over there is weird, are very weird, I had fun with this one. This was just a nice little. It was a refresher from all the big, gigantic blockbusters, such as Borderlands movie that came out this year. Just a nice refresher, and also much better than the Borderlands movie, which obviously is at the bottom of this list. 35, We Live in Time. What was it? The Andrew Garfield, Florence Pugh. Not really it has comedic moments, but it's like a romantic dramedy. It's kind of like the way I described the idea of You. But I this is probably my favorite of the romantic comedies or romantic dramedies that dropped this year. Like I said, this is just kind of a heartwarming movie. It's a kind of about what you choose to do. It has themes about what you choose to do with time, and sort of how you utilize your time with the people that you love the most, and it kind of plays that out between these two characters. Once again, this is not my genre, not one I rewatch, but I say of these romantic dramedies, this is the one I got the most out of. It can tug at the heartstrings. It has some great performances, so I thought this was a good movie. Next up, after We Live in Time, which is also listed as 35, Bob Marley, the movie. Something's weird with the numbering on this list. I don't know that I numbered this correctly. Maybe I saw 115 movies instead. I need to count better later on. Bob Marley is a movie that my dad really enjoyed. My dad listened to Bob Marley when he was growing up, so of course he took us to go see this movie. I thought it was good. It was okay. It's not one that I'll ever rewatch that often, but it was a good movie. It kind of if you want to enjoy this movie, you have to accept it's about like the last 5 years of his life and the impact that he left on people, and it was an effective enough version of that. Do I listen to Bob Marley all that much? No, but of course he is a famous singer. He's a person that made a large impact, and this movie definitely displayed that. The Bike Riders 34. This is sort of reminded me of The Outsiders. This book I read back in 7th grade, where it's these biker gangs and the relationships and sort of dynamics that go along with the people in these biker gangs. I thought it was a nice little exploration of that and how they sort of fell apart. It could tug at the heartstrings a little bit. I thought it was a well done movie. I think from here on out, from the Bike Riders and up, all these, let me just look at this list. All of these are just movies that I think, wow, I just love movies. I'm just talking about movies that I really enjoy at this point on. Yeah, so I really dug the Bike Riders. There were some issues there. It did feel a little bit episodic, but I did think it was a good movie. 33, A Different Man. This is a Sebastian Stan drama about a guy that has face tumors, and he undergoes a procedure that makes them all disappear. He was super insecure when he had the face tumors, didn't think he could do anything, and now he's more successful now that people are not looking at him with all the face tumors. But then he's sort of conflicted when he meets this character that has the same condition that he previously had, but is confident in what he is and his life and is satisfied and all that. And so I just thought it was very well done. It was a really good movie. And definitely a slow-moving drama. I don't know why my mind blanked there. In the middle of it, I forgot what I was talking about. Definitely slower paced. It's not really one that I'll rewatch, but I do think this is a very good movie. 32, The First Omen. This is one I was not excited for. I don't remember if I listed this down as one of my top 3 most surprising movies of the year. It might have been up there, but it definitely was one of the more surprising movies that I saw this year. The trailers just made it look really generic. I wasn't looking forward to an Omen prequel in the year 2024 after The Omen came out in 1976. It was probably too late for that, and the movie itself won me over. It was a good movie, where it had some effective scares in it, surprisingly. And like I said, I mentioned previously before Immaculate, which is much lower on this list, but I enjoy this movie a lot more because it kind of has very similar plot beats to Immaculate, especially coming out a couple weeks after that film. But in tying into the Omen lore, it makes it a lot more interesting. Also, unlike Immaculate, this one had some weird birthing sequences that were just like imagery that in the theater my brother actually had to like look away from, and he couldn't. Yeah, it's just these creepy sequences. That's what a horror movie is supposed to do. This one did that. So it's one of the better horror movies I would say that came out this year. In a year filled with horrible horror movies. Moving on to a completely different horror movie, Lisa Frankenstein at number 31. Trying to make sure I don't miscount here. Lisa Frankenstein is a very different type of horror movie. It's much more of a comedy than a horror movie. It's about this girl that wishes one night for a zombie to come back to life, and then there's sort of this romance going on with her and the zombie all running throughout while she's a high schooler and dealing with all that. I had a ton of fun with this movie. It was really fun. I saw this movie in an empty theater. It was just me and my brother. I saw this thing in an empty theater, and it was laugh out loud funny. If more people had seen this movie, I think it would have been sort of like one of those slept on films where this is just sort of a fun movie that displays like Catherine Newton could be really funny. It's just a really fun time at the movies. Yeah, that's all I got to say about it. 30, the best Christmas pageant ever. This is the Christmas movie that came out back in November. I thought it was just a nice, sweet, wholesome film where essentially it kind of has themes about there's humanity in all of us. We're all more complicated than meets the eye. Where it displays these children as just absolutely horrible, and as the film progresses, it kind of like we're all humans. We're all flawed in what we do, and so we're not perfect, but we can be the better version of ourselves. Just thought it was really, really wholesome. Family Christmas movie, especially if you are a Catholic Christian like myself. An entirely different direction. Deadpool and Wolverine. This is an entirely different direction than the best Christmas pageant ever. This is the biggest movie of the year. And sometimes, like I was just talking about New Life earlier, now I'm talking about the biggest movie of the year. Deadpool and Wolverine. You all have seen this movie. It's just a ton of fun. Not one of my favorites of the year. I have my issues with it, but that doesn't change the fact this is a really fun time at the movies. If you're a Deadpool fan, it's very fun. It has, as a multiverse movie, it has a bunch of cameos in it. Blade, Chris Evans as Human Torch, Channing Tatum Gambit, Elektra, just all of that stuff that was in this movie that was just so fun. It was so entertaining. And even like it had a good bit of emotion. I'd say maybe one of my favorite characters of this year is this movie's version of Wolverine, who's a deeply broken character. We feel like he has sort of no purpose anymore because of what he did to his universe, and so he's lacking any sort of happiness. And through Deadpool of all people, he actually finds some appreciation. He finds, like, for once in his life, I'm proud to wear this suit. Like, it has some really profound moments. I have my issues with this movie. That's why it's not, like, up there in the top 10 or anything like that, because I think that the third act just felt kind of a little bit tacked on. But otherwise, this is just one of the most entertaining movies of the year. And Deadpool and Wolverine, not to mention, they have fantastic chemistry. I dug it. Simple as that. Where am I? Deadpool and Wolverine, biggest movie of the year. Let's move on to a movie that flopped. The Fall Guy. Of all the movies on this list, I think this is the one that I rewatched the last. I rewatched this movie just a couple weeks ago. I have fun with it. Another one I have my issues with, but I just love. Much like Deadpool and Wolverine. I love Deadpool and Wolverine. I also love The Fall Guy. It's a movie celebrating stuntmen. It's about a stuntman who gets set up by a bunch of actors. And as a movie about making movies, that's just fun to watch. It just is. Where it kind of Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt, they have such a great dynamic going on When it was about them, I thought it worked the best. The action side felt a little bit separated, but it was still really fun when it was an action movie. The twist, the story itself is very predictable. To me, at least. Like, I knew who the villain was immediately from the beginning. But because I had fun on the way there, I had so much fun, it worked for me. And as a celebration of stuntmen and movies, we need to appreciate the stuntmen more in movies. And I hope that this movie used practical stunts. If it used CGI, that's contradictory to the movie's point. 26, Boy Kills World. This is another action movie. It is ultra violent. It is gory. Essentially, it's this movie about Bill Skarsgård. He lives in this sort of very corrupt territory, and he's trying to get revenge on what these corrupt government officials have done to his sister. I had a lot of fun with it. And Bill Skarsgård is like deaf and mute, so he has this like video game voice in his head. It's ridiculous. It's dumb. It has twists and turns. It has real twists and turns in it that I wasn't expecting. And so I really did think that, like, I had fun with this one. One of the last movies I watched during the year. I had fun with it. And in an entirely different direction, 25, Ordinary Angels. This is Hilary Swank, Alan Richardson. This is a movie about a guy, it's kind of like Signs. If you took away the alien side to it, it's just about the drama and about bringing out the best in people. Signs was a movie about a guy who lost his wife and has lost his faith. This is the exact same thing. He's lost his faith, he's lost his wife, and his daughter has an illness, like sort of a cancer, and they're trying to get the funds to do it. It kind of just brings out the best in people as its message. Very good movie to show to the family as well. And so from here on out, as a point of reference, everything above Ordinary Angels, I love these. These are great. Just great movies. So last 24 movies on the list. Let's go. Society of the Snow, 24. I love this movie. This was one of the first movies that I saw this year. I just thought it was really, really well done. It's based on a true story. It's based on a true story about these guys, this soccer team that was supposed to play a game, and then they crashed in the mountains in the snow and are lost. Simple enough, but it's so effective. It actually has, these characters and the desperation they go to. It's very, very tense, very gritty. Works so well. Just like underwatched Netflix movie. It is a Spanish film. Check it out. It's on Netflix. It was one of the first movies that came out this year. I loved what they did with this thing. 23, The Substance. This is the thank you for 400 subscribers. I should probably do that for 500. I now have 540 subscribers right now. So thank you guys so much for that, by the way. Very grateful for that. I'll take a quick moment to thank you guys so much. I never thought I would reach 540 subscribers, but here I am now. But I should probably do that in a separate video. The Substance is a movie that somebody commented in my video. This guy named John commented in my video. Watch The Substance. I watched The Substance. Now I can talk about it. This is a very weird movie, but in all of the right ways. It's a film about this actress that feels like she's losing her beauty, and then takes this drug that makes a second version of herself, but they have to switch bodies every 7 days. And the younger version of himself abuses the system. And it also it gets weirder and weirder as it goes along. But as weird as it gets in the third act, it also has this commentary about the beauty standards, the unrealistic beauty standards of people in general, and how we don't think we look good, so we have to do all this makeup to go out in public and things like that. I just thought it was really, really well done. Not one that I'll rewatch. About 20%, a good 20 to 30% of this movie is spent in nudity, so I don't know that I'd rewatch it. Very good movie though. And one that is my thing, Abigail 22, at number 22. This is the another vampire movie that came out. Just had an absolute blast with it. It was these kidnappers kidnap a ballerina vampire, and all the crazy stuff takes place. ultra violent, ultra gory. It's from the guys that did the previous two Scream movies, and so naturally they know how to do these types of films. I really dug it, and I only have a few minutes left at this moment, so I'm going to try to talk about this a little bit faster. Another horror movie, 21 Late Night with the Devil. Sorry, I was about to burp there, but held it in. 21 Late Night with the Devil. This is another horror movie. I don't know, like, are there any other There are a couple horror movies higher up on this list, I can see, or actually a few of them. But yeah, as bad as it was this year for horror, we actually got some really solid horror movies as well. Abigail, The Substance, and now Late Night with the Devil. Another one, much like The Substance, that just had some commentary to it while also being a very interesting watch. This one is about this guy that runs a talk show, and his ratings are getting low, so he allows an exorcism to be performed in the talk show. And you're watching the episode and also the behind the scenes of the episode that doesn't exist of this talk show. And it gets weird, it gets nasty at times, but as it goes along and it does its reveals, it also has this commentary, just like The Substance, about human greed and human desires and why we do the things that we do and how flawed we are as humans. And it's just really dark stuff, but very interesting subject matter at the same time. So if you haven't seen Late Night with the Devil, I highly suggest it. I was late to the party on this one, but great, great, great movie. Number 20, Civil War. This is a polarizing one to many people. I just thought that it was a very interesting look at modern warfare, where you take a bunch of journalists who just want to document what's going on in this civil war. So it never, what it does really wisely is that it never asks you, there's no clear sense of good or bad here, or why there's a civil war going on. It's just modern warfare, how horrible it is, and it makes you have your own interpretations of what's going on in the movie. Very interesting film. I understand why some people didn't enjoy it, but I thought it was a very interesting look at modern warfare. Number 19, a streaming movie, Carry On. Carry On is the Taron Egerton, Jason Bateman, thriller. It's set in an airport where a TSA agent is set up by Jason Bateman, and I really dug it. It's from John Collet-Serra, a guy that did a bunch of action movies with Liam Neeson a while back. He did Nonstop, he did The Commuter. I don't remember, did he do Unknown? But he did a bunch of those movies where a guy is set up and he has to try to figure out how to get out of it. Nonstop and The Commuter in particular, this is better than those movies. This one is just, it's better paced, it's more entertaining, and it kind of just came out of nowhere. This is one of the biggest surprises of the year. 18, Last Stop in Yuma County. This is another smaller budget independent film. Like, I love talking about these independent films and try to suggest them to you guys. Much like Carry On, this is a very small, it's much smaller than Carry On, but it's a very solid thriller, edge of your seat thriller. Essentially what this one is it's people are at a gas station and there's no gas, and so there are bank robbers that show up. They're just waiting there, and then they kind of discover that they're the bank robbers and they have to do something about it, and they realize they have a lot of money, and it leads to some scenarios going on. And so I had fun with a really solid, tense, edge of your seat thriller. Do not watch the trailer for this movie before watching this movie. The trailer just gave out way too much, and I hadn't seen the trailer before watching this movie. I just simply saw the movie. So, like, do not watch the trailer. Just watch this movie. If you have not seen the trailer, don't watch it. Watch this movie. It's great. 17, Bad Boys, Ride or Die, Bad Boys 4. This is the fourth Bad Boys movie, and I would argue this is the best of the franchise. It had the best elements going for it. The third one was the best of the bunch before that. This one has the same dynamic between the two leads, Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. Very fun on screen together, have such great chemistry. It has some fantastic action sequences in it, where the Reggie sequence is the one that people are talking about, where it goes into a security camera and then it comes out and then it goes into another security camera. Like, it is so well done. But even like the finale battle, where it's so stylized, where Will Smith will be holding a gun, and it's from the gun's point of view, so you can see who he's shooting, and then he really quickly flips the camera, but you can't see it on screen, and it goes up to his face, and then it just flips the camera around and goes. Very, very stylized action sequences. Really funny also. This is my type of movie. I like action movies. I like this type of thing. I just really dug. I'm not a big fan of the first two Bad Boys, but the third one and the fourth one, fantastic. The fourth one is just fantastic, yeah. 16, Arthur the King. This is Mark Wahlberg. It has Mark Wahlberg. It's a sports movie about these people trying to do a marathon on bikes, on boats. It is based on a true story, and they form this bond with this dog, and it's just kind of sweet and wholesome. That's all it is. That's all it needs to be. It's just very simple, and it's sentimental and it's sweet. It just does a good job of doing that, and so don't have much to say about it other than that. But just a real nice film that it can tug at the heartstrings. It makes you feel good by the end of it. In a completely different direction here, once again, 15, Longlegs. This is the Oz Perkins horror movie that came out. Oz Perkins has a movie coming out next month, The Monkey. Very excited for it. But Longlegs is the movie where Nicolas Cage is a serial killer. It's very much reminiscent of films like Seven from David Fincher, but a really good version of that, where it's effective. It kind of these unsettling, creepy sequences. Just the color scheme, the way it's shot, it just looks kind of unnatural. Whenever Nicolas Cage as Longlegs is on screen, he's so unsettling. There's always something off about him. Really good horror movie. Not one that I'd rewatch or anything like that. I hear some people saying it was overhyped. Was it overhyped? Maybe a little bit, but this movie, it just had a great marketing going for it. I think this is the best marketing that I've seen for a movie this year, where they do these mysterious 30-second trailers. I didn't even watch the main trailer before going into this movie. I think I went in with the right experience. This was a very good movie. So one of the better horror movies of the year. 14, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. This was my most anticipated movie going into the year 2024. I absolutely love the Matt Reeves Planet of the Apes trilogy. I have it over there, actually, in 4K. This is one of my favorite things that I own. This Planet of the Apes 4K set of the trilogy, because I just love those three movies. Absolutely love. Rise, Dawn, they're all like A's, or maybe even A pluses to me. All those are some of my favorite movies of all time. Naturally, I was very excited going into this movie. I was a little bit skeptical because it wasn't from the same director. I'm not really a big Maze Runner fan. The director for Maze Runner did this movie. He absolutely knocked it out of the park. It's not as good as the Matt Reeves and Rise movies, that trilogy of films, but it's a very good continuation of that, where it explores it in a totally different manner, as it's set centuries after the Matt Reeves trilogy, or not even Matt Reeves trilogy, the Matt Reeves duology of movies. Very good. It explores the angle in which the apes kind of have taken over the world. It is a Planet of the Apes. Very good movie. It does feel epic. It doesn't have the effect of those other movies, but I thought it was very good. Still one of my favorites of the year. Number 13, Sonic 3. Now, this was a bit of a frustrating one with a theater experience overall. I was supposed to see this one with a few friends actually. Shout out to my friends. If you are watching this right now, shout out to you guys. You guys had a fun time watching Sonic. I watched Sonic literally the day after. I couldn't make it over there. I'm not going to share the reason why on here, but I simply put, I thought it was a fun movie. Me and my friends at school have been quoting this movie this past couple weeks since we've gone back to school. I just thought it was a really fun movie. It takes all the best elements of the Sonic franchise, mashes it into this movie, and it's well done. Very good movie. where Jim Carrey is now two characters, both of which are kind of fun. And I always crack my friends up with my Gerald impression, my Gerald Robotnik impression. Shadow's a fantastic villain, voiced by Keanu Reeves, which is kind of fun in the Sonic franchise. And he has this backstory to him that makes you care about him. Sonic and has this sort of character transformation. Very, very well done movie. And so, this was just a really good continuation of the Sonic franchise. Number 12, Hitman. This is the Netflix Glenn Powell movie. It's just a really nice, smaller film. Where it's a comedy, it's a romance a little bit, and it's a rom-com of sorts, but also this sort of crime procedural of sorts, where it's sort of a crime movie, and it mashes them all together in what just makes for a very, very surprisingly accessible film. One that you could just sit down with a group of buddies and watch and have fun with and crack up. This is just a very nice sort of change of pace for the film industry, and it's kind of all of that. It plays out a scenario where this guy is playing fake hitman and he falls in love and he has to like sort of kind of hide the fact that he's not a real hitman. That leads to them making some bad choices. As many bad choices as the characters make in this movie, they still end up being quite likable. So I just thought that this film, it was just a whole lot of fun. It did exactly what it was going for. When I debated Sonic 3 and Hitman, I really debated including. The next one on here is number 11, right outside of my top 10. A lot of you guys have this one in your top 10. If I ask some people what is their favorite movie of the year, The Wild Robot, number 11. This is the probably the most praised movie of this year. Made it just outside the top 10. I'm not even I debated putting this in the top 10, but I need to be honest with myself about what my top 10 was. So, The Wild Robot is DreamWorks' latest film that everybody has been crying over, actually bawling crying over. I thought it was very good. Very, very good. I'm sorry I could not put it in my top 10, but it made it just outside, but absolutely amazing film. I thought it was very good, where it's a movie that just tackles a bunch of themes so well. So it's a film essentially about parenting, where this robot learns to parent this bird. So it's about parenting, and it can resonate with mothers. But it's really also a movie about sort of trying to fit in and finding your place, which is relatable to kids like me. Where this robot definitely is out of place in the wilderness, and she ends up filling in. And also sort of finding that community where you feel comfortable in, where you feel accepted. And it was just very, very well done. It tackles both of the finding community thing through the robot Roz finding community through the animals in it, and also the bird sort of finding his own little community with other birds where he gets to migrate. So well done, very thematic, very powerful. Did I cry watching this movie? No, I will say I didn't. But it is a very heavy-hitting emotional film. Watch this with a group of your friends. If you're a teenager like me, watch this with a group of your friends. See if any of them cry during it. It is very good, and it makes me wish I could have seen this one with my mom, because I'm sure my mom would absolutely love this movie. I need to watch it with her when it drops on Netflix or something like that. I don't know how I feel about them doing a sequel. I hear that they're doing a sequel. I don't know how I feel about that, but that is a video for another day. We have made it to the top 10 of the year. I'm just going to kind of speed run through this. If you want to hear more of the in-depth thoughts on each of these movies, check out my top 10 of the year list. But I'm just going to kind of talk about these movies really quickly. Number 10, Furiosa. This was the prequel to Mad Max. It took them 9 years for them to make another Mad Max movie for us. Very cool movie. Though it's getting short. Need to take a refresher. Very cool movie. It's kind of like a two-part epic, like Homer's Odyssey. Furiosa is just an interesting character to explore. Chris Hemsworth is the standout of this movie. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see what they do with the Mad Max Fury Road sequel that's coming out in a couple of years, I'm pretty sure. Can't wait to see what they do with that, because this was a great movie, and I wish more people would have seen it, because I know this movie bombed. The month of May was just kind of like a disaster for the kickoff to summer blockbusters, because this was just an amazing film. Transformers 1 at number 9. This is one that I think I listed this one down as my most surprising movie of the year. It came out on my birthday. What a great birthday movie. The trailers were awful. Movie itself, absolutely fantastic. September was the month for robot animated movies. We got Transformers 1 and The Wild Robot in a week, and they're only a couple spots away from each other. Yeah, I don't know if you guys heard that. I think I let out a burp. Again. The movie dives into the relationship and sort of the falling out between Optimus Prime and Megatron, and sort of the dynamics that come with that, the fallout between those two. Very well done. Very cool. Very, very well done. And it has fantastic fan service moments and everything. I'm not even a big Transformers fan myself, but I thought it was very well done. Number 8, Heretic, another very, very cool horror movie. Is this the best horror movie of the year? There's one more horror movie on this year we'll get to. But Heretic is... Wow. This was just like the smartest script of the year. Where it's a movie about two missionaries, Mormon missionaries, that they enter this guy's house attempting to preach to him, and then he turns out to be a total psycho atheist that kidnaps women. And, oh, shoot, spoiled the twist there. But, yeah, very cool movie. As a Christian, no, I'm not a Christian, I'm a Catholic. As a Catholic, I didn't find myself super duper offended by this movie because the atheist is the villain. He's not portrayed to be the hero. Very smart script, very well done. Thrilling, and it was a movie right up my alley. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Challengers, number 7. This is the Zendaya sports movie. Very, very cool movie also. It's this drama about these 3 characters that are super heated towards each other. Very toxic characters. And 3 great performances. 3 great leads. Such stylized way of doing the tennis matches where they're hitting the ball and the cameras and the point of view of the ball and it goes around under the tennis court. And it's a non-linear perspective where it goes out of order. It gets 2 weeks earlier, 13 days later. It does all of that, and it adds more to the experience because whenever it goes back to the present versus the non-linear 2 weeks earlier, 30 years earlier, or whatever, it adds more context to it. It's great. Fantastic movie. I hope it gets nominated for Best Picture next week when they announce the Oscars. Number 6, my favorite animated movie of the year, Inside Out 2. As a teenager, this one related to me. I went into this movie with high expectations, thinking it was going to be really good. It was really good. Where Inside Out 2, it brings in anxiety as a character, standout character of this movie, where she gets the biggest character arc. It's very relatable to teenagers like me. That's all I have to say about it right now. Awesome movie. All you guys should watch it. Completely different direction. Number 5, Anora. Very surprising movie. This is a movie about a stripper. But, very, very good movie where that actually ends up to be surprisingly powerful and poignant and quite emotional by the time you get to the end of it. Where it's fun, it's funny, it's a film about a stripper that ends up marrying this Russian guy and learns that this Russian guy only married her to stay in the United States and stay away from his parents, and his family is enraged, and then they try to get him back over. It sounds uninteresting, but very, very good. The performances, especially from Mikey Madison, great performances. Very different movie. It's weird putting this next to Inside Out 2. Very, very different types of movies, but very good movie that ended up to be poignant and emotional at the same time. Number 4, Dune Part 2. This is probably going to get nominated for Best Picture. It might even win. I don't know that the Oscars would give the Best Picture winner to a sci-fi movie like Dune. But man, this is just a great, probably the most epic movie of the year. I'm just looking at this list here. The largest in scale movie of this year, where it's a film about Paul and his rise and his fall at the same exact time. And it contrasts those so unbelievably well, where his rise to power and sort of he gains more power, he gains the respect of these people up there, and also kind of turns into a jerk at the same time. Throat. Very well done movie. And I cannot wait to see what they do with Dune Part 2. I'm sure all of you guys have seen this movie. Don't have much to say about it other than that. And while I do think all of you guys have seen Dune Part 2, a movie I don't think many of you guys have seen, number 3, Juror Number 2. This was one of the last movies that I watched during the year, and I was pretty sure I was going to like it. I ended up loving it. This is what's strange about this movie is that this movie got such a limited release. It barely released in theaters, and that's just weird to me. It has Nicholas Hoult, Toni Collette, David Falk from Air. Like, I don't remember the guy's name, but he's that guy. And then also J.K. Simmons plays a role in there. It has talent, top tier talent, and it barely got released in theaters. And it's directed by Clint Eastwood, a guy that has won multiple awards for his movies. And it's just baffling to me that they barely released this movie. What a weird way that this played out, and I suggest more of you guys watch this movie. It's on HBO Max right now. You guys can watch it. Anyways, this is a courtroom drama, mainly focusing on the jurors. And if you guys haven't seen the trailer, just don't even read the premise of it. Just watch this movie. It plays much better, much like Last Stop in Yuma County. But what this movie does so well is that it's this morally conflicting drama about should I do the right thing, should I not do the right thing. And no matter what, you feel bad about yourself. You feel like this ick factor to yourself. And it does that so effectively well. I wish they would release this movie wider in some areas because fantastic film, by the way. It's on HBO Max. You guys can watch it right now. Our runner-up, Wicked. Our musical's my thing if the songs are good, if it stands out. In this movie, were the songs good and stood out? And the musical numbers stood out? Yes, they were. And I thoroughly enjoyed what they did with this movie. I didn't really care about Wicked before going into this, but I heard some positive things about it. I was just assuming it wasn't going to be my thing. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Made me really excited for Wicked Part 2. The theater, as this movie ended and the to be continued title card showed up, I audibly was just like, I could stay here for 2 more hours. Just give me Part 2 right now. Because it's a 2-hour, 40-minute movie. Doesn't feel that long at all. It moves at a very nice pace in a way that it doesn't feel long. Of course, the singers here are very talented. Ariana Grande, Cynthia Erivo. And the musical numbers are just so well done, so well choreographed, so large in scale, where it's just very, very, very well done movie. I love what they did with this one. One that I could find myself rewatching, honestly. And I'm not even a big Wizard of Oz fan. This movie made me like the world of the Wizard of Oz. And that's when your movie has done something really special. Final one to talk about here. Number 1. Alien Romulus. This to me was just right up my alley. I absolutely love this movie. This was the horror movie I mentioned earlier on this list. Probably the best horror movie of the year. Best movie of the year. So, yeah, of course it's the best horror movie of the year. This is the best Alien movie they've released since 1986. Very much, the director, the writers were fans of this franchise, made this movie. It absolutely paid off. It takes elements from Alien Isolation, the video game, as well as the first 2 Alien movies, and even takes elements from the bad sequels, meshes them together, and it really works. Where it has the horror aspects of the first Aliens, it has some actual action sequences in Aliens. It even has at the ending where they suck the monster out into outer space. Even has some of those elements, but also takes elements from Alien Resurrection with the human-alien hybrid at the end, and Prometheus with the black goo that does things to you. Makes them better. This movie made me like Prometheus more, and I'm not even a big fan of Prometheus, and so, yeah, Alien Romulus. Man, what a great movie of this year. And it came out just a week after Borderlands movie. The movie at the bottom of this list and the movie at the top of this list came out a week apart from each other. Crazy to me. That's how the way the world played out. But as of right now, this is the movie that was the most my thing. I've rewatched it a few times. Probably have rewatched it the most out of every movie this year. And so, as a big fan of Alien, this was just right up my alley. It was what the franchise needed after a string of horrible movies. And so, for me, at least, in a year filled with some hard hitters, Alien Romulus is my favorite movie of the year.